you trust Ferguson Roof Systems to replace your roof, we go the extra mile to protect your home and property. On every job, we deploy durable netting to protect your home's exterior and landscaping. It's just one more reason why you should call Ferguson Roof Systems today.
Let's see. I see you, Chad. See you in the house. Haley, thanks for some stars already to kickstart this broadcast. And who was it? Jennifer? I forget. Somebody sent me a message that says, "Hey, don't forget to check your messages." Send me a message to tell me to check my messages. Yeah, I did. One was about buses for the morning. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that. So thanks for coming here. Obviously, everybody wants to know what's it going to be like in the morning when you got to get up early. Some of you are probably getting ready to close your eyes right now and hoping for the best and thinking, maybe I'll get a nice stay tomorrow. Maybe I get to stay home and sleep in. I don't know. We'll see. Take a look at the data here in just a minute. So thanks for joining me, Meteorologist Tuttle. We are here to talk about this winter storm one last time because tomorrow I'm done with it and you're done with it and it's over. So it's just for tonight only. By tomorrow morning, by mid-morning, things improve and things get better. But early tomorrow morning, unfortunately, it's still slippery slope out there. We'll show you where here in just a second. Meanwhile, out there currently, I still got some clouds, obviously, in my backyard, and probably so do you. I'm at 28.9 degrees outside. So I didn't really get too warm today. I stayed below the freezing level, so I never got above freezing. I think I topped out at maybe 30, and that was about it. But you can see the other numbers. It's a light wind or almost no wind at all because high pressure is in control. By the way, if you'd like a Tempest weather station like what I have, what I'm showing here on the screen, you can get a discount using that QR code. You can scan that anytime, or you can just conversely go to my website, aarontutleweather.com, and look on the shop tab, and there is a link where you can get a little discount if you'd like to order one. A lot of you have done so, and I'm going to show you what that looks like when you do, because it's nuts. Matter of fact, and then we're going to get on with it. This is just an example of what happens if you do own a Tempest. These are all the Tempests in Dallas-Fort Worth. So as a meteorologist for me, and I want to look at temperatures to find out where the freezing line is, this is a gold mine. I mean, look at all these guys all around Dallas-Fort Worth. And I can click on any one of them, and they'll show me here the temperature on the right. So if I pull this over here to the left a little bit, you can see all the numbers associated with each account. So if I go into Rockwall, for example, it says it's 31.5 degrees. That's almost at the freezing point of 32, aka also the melting point of water. If you get to 32 point plus, right? 32.01 or whatever. And once you get a little bit more east of that, it's still kind of hugging around 30. Oh, there's 32.4. It's above freezing once you get just east of Royce City and Terrell. So that's kind of what this would work in for me in my favor to kind of find out if that freezing line is starting to retreat or not. So kind of give you a sneak peek of what we're going to be looking at here for tonight. All right, let's go over to the weather radar. Here's the big picture. Frozen precipitation all across Texas, of course, Oklahoma, out toward Arkansas, and even out here to Nashville. You believe that? All these little pink areas indicate freezing rain reports as temperatures here are into the upper 20s to lower 30s. So that continues all over that state. Man, my goodness, Tennessee. And then on back west through Memphis, they're in the upper 20s. They've been having problems with this ice storm. And then down here into Little Rock and other areas of Arkansas, lots of upper 20s still in this area, even some lower 30s down here along the border on into Louisiana. Then, of course, we got back here in Oklahoma. There's lots of 20s out there still. These little pink areas are reports of freezing rain and freezing drizzle. That extends on down south into Dallas. Still more reports of freezing rain coming in. And then there's that we kind of talked about how things are starting to moderate a bit in the temperature level. When we mentioned how things would slowly improve Wednesday afternoon and evening as this little line kind of right here starts to kind of slowly work its way this way. And then things here just start to get a little above freezing, give you size a little bit of a break. And then the question mark was, how far west does it go overnight tonight? So we'll look and see if what the new data shows down there for you guys in Dallas. If you do look at the close-up view of the radar down there, you have had a pretty good round of freezing rain move through not too long ago. It's now pressing off to your north and east. And then we got a brand new round coming back at you from Comanche County. Some very heavy stuff in this, almost some thunder with some of this. See how the orange and red, it's heavy DBZ. In other words, that's a heavy rain shower, which usually has a little bit of potential for some thunder activity. So you might hear some thunder, freezing rain with this batch that comes in as new upper level energy comes in from the south and west. And of course, this will generate all back into the south and west, and that will continue to work its way northward in Oklahoma. So here's Oklahoma, for example, and we had a few little tiny rounds that moved through this evening, but otherwise it was mostly dry. Our atmosphere was very dry in the mid-levels today, so it's taken a lot to oversaturate that, and it's taken forever, as a matter of fact. But you can see this line continues to slowly drift to the north. The radar is trying to paint it orange for a little bit of sleep, but it's really just all freezing rain. But that will continue on down into the border areas and then points east from there. So we kind of got saved here in central Oklahoma today because of the dry air intrusion, and that includes you guys up in Tulsa. But down here in southeast Oklahoma, there's been a lot more moisture around, so some of this, of course, is already hitting to the ground. Now, if you live out here in McCurtain County, your temperatures have warmed up to just about or above freezing in many areas. So that's some good news for you, but that's kind of been the way it has been in the model data here for a while. Let's go back to the maps. Let me show you. We'll start off with this guy here. So temperatures out there across Oklahoma did not get above freezing once you got into central or eastern sides of the state, unless, again, you live in McCurtain County down here in southeast, and then back up here the Panhandle. Other than that, models busted on the overall warm-up for today. And temperatures out there in the red, or into the 20s again, at the teens, showing up in the dew point values. Now remember, the temperature and the dew point have to meet for complete total air saturation. Now, can you get precipitation without these two numbers meeting? Yes, you can. Like down here in the south, they're about a 5-degree difference in some cases, maybe 4 or 3 degrees, and precipitation is reaching the ground. But when they're much further than that, like a 10 to 12 degree, it's a lot harder. You kind of get more of the sprinkle variety that presses through that. But when you do kind of mush the two together, dew point, the wet bulb temperature, which is where those temperatures meet, is well below freezing here in central Oklahoma for tonight. So any precipitation that does fall will be frozen. The exception to the rule is way down here in southeast Oklahoma. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, because remember, anything that falls is going to be frozen. So if you had no precipitation at all, you don't have anything to worry about. But if you do, you have something to worry about. All right, here's a look at the sounding, which does show the warm nose here at 850. Some dry air. Still, this little pocket right here, we're still overcoming. It is so ridiculous how much dry air moved in today. The ice storm warning continues out here in purple across all of western Texas, back up here to the north and east into the Arkansas area. When you do look at the water vapor channel, you do see the overall spinning motion of the upper level low here, and it does create a lot of lift in the atmosphere that comes across Mexico. You see these little highlighted areas here, boom, 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 boom. That is moisture interacting with upper level energy, and then it starts to trigger these showers and storms that bubble up, and you show the little white tops, and then they drift northward and northeastward in the flow, and that comes in, like I mentioned. Remember the threat of a little bit of thunder? See the little tops right here? That's some deep moisture there. And then back out here west in Oklahoma, yes, we're still getting moisture overlaid. This is in the mid and upper levels, though, so we still have to finish saturating what's going on around here, and we'll start to get a little bit of that wet stuff. Here's a look at the NAM model, which does show the... come on now. Work with me. Don't do that. Do this. I'm going to have to hit the refresh button. There we go. Boy, that was weird. I got to have a caching issue or something. Let's go. Here's a look. It finally moves out of northern Mexico through Texas, and it comes across weak. I mean, lame. In other words, the model thinks the system is dying and dying rapidly. And if that does happen, usually that limits some of the precipitation totals. But I don't know if it's got a good handle on these because there's really no good sounding network that covers that part of the country of Mexico. But needless to say, the model does its best at trying to time the heavy lift. See that bright red overnight? That's a lot of heavy lift that moves through central Texas right there into North Texas and Oklahoma through the overnight hours into the morning. That moves off to the east into southern Arkansas, eastern Texas, and pretty much that's all she wrote. After that, all the lift pretty much vaporizes because the model has the system dying fast. Here's a look at the temperatures out there tonight. Watch the bottom line here. I was going to make a wrestling reference and I stopped myself. Right down here is the freezing line, the leading edge of the blue. So as we go through time tonight and the latest data, we'll see what happens with it through midnight. So right here. And it kind of keeps it about where it is. In other words, there's no moderation of this eastern fringe. Everything's kind of status quo. You're right about 31 to 32 degrees here in Dallas County, for example. As we head into the morning hours, things start to now rebound quite a bit by 6 a.m. Now you're starting to see the retreat of the line for the freezing line. So any precipitation that continues to fall at this point, which shouldn't be much, is going to start to just be good old-fashioned cold rain. Now back here in the colder air, you're still going to get whatever falls from the ground. If there's still anything out there at this point in time, will still be in the form of some frozen stuff through mid-morning. But by the time we head into, say, 9 to 10 o'clock, look how much of the blue is replaced by green to about 11 o'clock. And then by noon, it's just about all gone. So if you do have any traveling plans tomorrow, again, the morning seems to be a little on the slick and hazardous side. That includes all of the southern half of Oklahoma through North Texas. Let's take a look at the mounts and where the precipitation pattern ends. So this is the latest data that comes in this evening, which is showing all the red stuff here on the map, which is freezing rain, moving into central Oklahoma, etc., and then more developing down there into Texas overnight through tomorrow morning. So again, this is the 6 to 7 o'clock hour. So this is all rain down here in Texas now from Dallas-Fort Worth eastward. A little patch hanging on of a light freezing rain or drizzle that still tries to make one last hurrah in the mid-morning hours. But look how quickly that changes over to green, which means it's also in the middle of transitioning out of that frozen stuff into just the cold raindrops. Close-up view of Oklahoma 4 this evening shows you all the freezing rain is down to the south. You can see there's not a whole lot of it. Models are fairly light with the development of this. It just keeps falling into that drier air and evaporates. It is still enough, though, to coat the ground. So if you notice, I-40 here in Oklahoma seems to be the dividing line. There's not a whole lot of action north of 40. Maybe it'll be a little bit going to this area. But remember, all it takes is just a little splash of moisture, the right place or the wrong time, and you're on the roadway, and that could cause an issue. So just keep in mind, if the road looks wet or it's got that little sheen on it, black ice will be around. So head to 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, that stuff's still bubbling up around the area. There's 5 and 6. There's a little taste in Tulsa. That's all you're going to get, but again, that may all you need to cause some morning mayhem at rush hour. Same thing here for Oklahoma City. Points down the south along the I-35 to the Red River, and then by 10 o'clock in the morning, all that stuff's gone. It's just, if there's anything left out there, it's just sprinkles. If you do look at the measurable amount of ice that is in the forecast for the remainder of tonight, like I said, basically a glazing at most up here in Tulsa. Here in Oklahoma City, I'd still think maybe a tenth of an inch at most. Otherwise, should be a little bit heavier with some pockets anywhere from a tenth to maybe as much as a quarter of an inch in some areas if we can get some training of some heavier thunderstorm type activity or just some very heavy cores that move through. The better odds of that would be probably down along the Red River and then into southeastern Oklahoma and McAllister to Fort Smith in this little triangle area corridor, minus, of course, McCurtain County. Anyway, so that's the high-resolution HER. This is the NAM, and this is the high-resolution NAM right here. So they all tell a different story, but the general idea is mostly along and south of I-40. If you zip on down into Texas, the same kind of story, slightly different models, so slightly different data. But the story is the same. You'll still have a few tracks where you're going to get probably a quarter of an inch of ice overnight. But otherwise, a widespread tenth of an inch, likely just to add a little bit more insult to injury. Most of your freezing rain and whatnot has already fallen up to this point. If you expand the view, this does show some more heavy measurable stuff, up to about a quarter of an inch, looks like, for the southern parts of Arkansas from Little Rock southward. And then that continues with this model, this model, this model. They're all kind of the same. The Canadian is always a little too aggressive. That's a little high. But even this continues to show some icing going all the way down I-35 toward Austin, Waco, and down towards San Antonio for tonight. Measurable enough to cause, again, road conditions and probably some power outages. Speaking of which, this is a look from the National Weather Service, which shows the power outage map, which is highlight here from Little Rock, parts of southern Arkansas tonight. Again, Dallas-Fort Worth, southern Oklahoma, not too far from Oklahoma City, not too far from Norman. As a matter of fact, if you were to zoom in, it might almost include it. Not quite. It's down toward McLean County, Pauls Valley, Paoli, and the rest it goes down southward from there. That just means some treacherous driving conditions in the morning, and then also some of that area may experience a loss of power. That is the case so far in Texas right now, where they're tracking over 355,000 people without power. And these favored highlighted counties here. Why here, you're asking? Well, remember, the cold front put the brakes on right here. With the cold front, you get lift along the front, which helps you generate additional precipitation. 2, the atmosphere is very thin here, so the precipitation that falls does not get to go to sleet. It means it's all freezing rain. And then 3, I don't know, I had a third earlier today, and now I lost my train of thought. So moving on, that's where your biggest power outages are for right now. And then there'll be a few more scattered in about west of here for tonight into early tomorrow morning. So a few more should go up overnight. All right, so speaking of which, besides power outages, which you can get on my website, AaronTuttleWeather.com. It's on the Weather Data tab. It's also on my weather app, which is free, AT's Weather to Go. I think it's the third or fourth menu item down, so I just loaded the power outages there for Oklahoma. It also has Texas. It also has Arkansas, so I've added a few more. This is the road conditions as well for Oklahoma. You can click on any of these little pictures. These are the road crews that are out there to watch the roadways to make sure everything is good, everything's copacetic. Now, at nighttime, obviously, in some cases, it might be harder to see unless the crew kind of has their headlights on in front of them, right? Like this guy right here, he's got his high beams on. But otherwise, these colors on the maps for the roads will change as they become more slippery. Right now, they don't look too bad. If you zip on down, you can get the Oklahoma Metro view. You can click on any of these. It'll give you real-time driving conditions. You can click on this and blow it up. It'll show you how traffic is moving. So if you get up early in the morning, like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and you pull up my app or you pull up my website and you see the radar and it's got precipitation on it, and you want to know, hey, how's it doing with cars so far? You can click on any of these and see right before you supposedly head out the door to make sure it's safe. Down here in Kansas, we've got them on here for you. Missouri, we've also got road conditions. Colorado, we've got Texas on here as well. So, of course, you can imagine most of Dallas-Fort Worth has been red to orange for the last 2 days. And then, let's see, I think I got Arkansas on here, and then even New Mexico. So anyway, so that's some information for you that may be helpful. Temperatures here in Oklahoma City, we'll be back into the 40s, believe it or not, tomorrow and Friday. Over the weekend, a nice little bump up in the temperatures, back into the 60s, and then following that, back into the 50s for the rest of the week. And finally, last but not least, just for a little bit of fun, if you want to, tonight, you can watch how they slide in Texas. So sliding down an icy hill, it's fun because you don't really have anything to break with. It's not like snow, and so you just keep on going depending on how solid that ice is. And if you got little trees and stuff in the way, it could turn into a very dangerous, fun event. So be careful out there if you do. But anyways, there's a lot of videos on here on Twitter of just not only people sliding, but also cars sliding. We showed some of this earlier this evening. That didn't go too well. There's plenty of that. I think this is the one where this lady here, she stops. Of course, these guys up here, they may not stop, but what she does is she gets out just to go check on things. She got cut from this clip. It was on a different one. She's walking around. You do not want to walk around when all this is happening because you don't have anything to protect yourself. Of course, some of the weight got heavy down in Austin and San Antonio. Did cause some problems there as well, and some brief power outages too. So that's a good place to go if you just want just a bunch of video clips and pictures, and there's a lot of that out there. So we looked at some of that earlier today when I had a lot more time just to spend with you, just to kind of see how things were going. Let me think. Anything else? So in Dallas itself, by the way, of course, some of the major thoroughfares, they closed them, the bridges and stuff, because they were too treacherous. And then you can see the side street here. I mean, this is nothing but solid ice. You can see the sheen. So some of the smaller roadways are just terrible in the parking lots, of course, as with anything. And then a lot of times you hear me mention a balloon, a sounding. Now there's a forecast sounding, and then there's the actual balloon sounding. So this is what a balloon sounding looks like from the Weather Service when they launch them twice a day. Now they will sometimes do a special launch. Sometimes that occurs in the middle afternoon during severe weather season, but can also occur during winter weather season. But this little guy here, this little instrumentation, it takes the temperature and the dew point and the winds and the pressure, all go up on this balloon. Then it goes up to close to 100,000 feet and pops, and then the system falls back to the ground. If they find it, they can reuse it. If not, it's lost, but it's not that expensive of a measuring device. Anyway, just some crazy scene out there. Here's Austin, just a ton of ice-covered trees down there. Let's see, and it's a hockey ring. Oh my goodness, I hadn't seen this one yet. Whoa, hockey, that's crazy. Look at this field. That's a football field, but it just looks like an ice hockey rink. Whoa. So it was pretty thick, the ice accumulation. Now here's some of the interesting things I did notice from some friends of mine that do live in Dallas, and they were showing me the ground, which is like that rink just covered in ice, but the trees were mostly okay. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So in that case, when that happens, it becomes, of course, obviously a travel nightmare, but the power is somewhat spared because you don't have the weight of those limbs hanging over the power lines themselves, or in some cases just the power lines themselves. Now, what can cause that is sometimes if you have temperatures that are kind of in the 30 to 32 range, because you will get a little bit of insulation from the sun that kind of helps to melt that off the tree. So that's kind of one aspect to think about. But winter weather is tricky in general when you're trying to find every little thing to talk about, and there's so many things that can go wrong in the forecast. And even when it is freezing rain and it is piled up in ice, you still sometimes can't quite predict how it's going to behave on other surfaces. There's my buddy Reed. He was chasing winter weather. This seen all too common when you have ice storms of these trucks that just go slamming into stuff, because a lot of times those big rigs, they fly through Texas and Oklahoma on their way from point A to point B, right? And they're not paying attention, or they don't know, and they're just hauling, and all of a sudden they come upon a scene where everybody's got their brakes locked and they're all sliding, and these guys can't stop. And you know what happens when they can't stop. You might as well forget it. So that's a lot what happens there. And I was looking at some traffic tonight. I'm going to pull that up here real quick. So I'm going to show you an example of that, which I thought was just insane. Did I already close the tab? I did, but we can reopen it. So let's do this. All right, so this is Arkansas. Of course, you got the color-coded red for just highlighting the fact that they've got issues, right? And you can click on any of these little cameras, and you can see if traffic is just moving along or not. And you can see how fast these big trucks go. Looks like, oh, somebody didn't make it here on the entrance ramp over here. Looks like they've got a tow truck or something. Not surprising there, but see how traffic can move pretty quick, and the streets are wet. Temperature here says 28 degrees. Now with the daytime, you can kind of get away with that sometimes, but there will come a point to where some of this is going to freeze up on the bridges if they're not treated well, or some of just the other roadways, and they may have treated this really well. Let's hope so, because if not, I mean, these guys go flying, and the roads are wet, right? And they're traveling in 28 degree temperatures. You do the math. At some point, things aren't going to go well, and you don't want to be involved in all that nonsense. So just a heads up, just because you may play it safe on the road when you're driving doesn't mean everybody else will, right? And you got to watch everybody else. That's the issue. But anyway, so there you go. Just some information for everybody. I think I pretty much covered it. So if you're watching and you're wondering, again, kind of late, I want a quick recap. Are we going to have ice tonight? Yes, over Oklahoma, point southward. So pretty much draw a line east and west from Oklahoma City. So that's your kind of northern boundary of anything significant. And then point southward. So the more south you go, the more moisture is to work with, so the higher the accumulation totals. As far as like Oklahoma City, for example, 1/10 of an inch is probably about the most I think we're going to get out of it. They will go higher, though, as you go down south, to maybe about 1/4 of an inch by the time you head to the Red River. And so that means all those southern towns in southeast Oklahoma. Some of the latest data says you guys up there in Tulsa may get just enough, just a few hundredths at most, and right about, the 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. window, to where, of course, that's the middle of your drive time commute. So bottom line is, the very simple way to look at this is when you get out in the morning, or you get up in the morning, check radar. You can check my website, AaronTuttleWeather.com. You can check my weather app, AT's Weather to Go. So knock that out first. Then you can pull up maybe some of the road conditions and click on maybe some of the live action to see how the roadways are going. And then the final thing is, you think everything's good and you walk out. If your street's wet, if it looks wet, it's going to be ice. When you are driving around, you do leave your house, maybe it's not so bad, but then you go down a few miles and all of a sudden everything looks different. It looks like something fell overnight. Be careful. Also, a big deal is you don't want to slam on your brakes when you're going over the bridges. It's pretty much too late for that. You need to slow down before you get to the bridges. And you can kind of, if you're not going too fast, right? I mean, you're not going like the semis I showed you, driving 60 plus. If you're going something like 30 and you want to downshift, you have an automatic, you can downshift, to gear 2 and then gear 1 to slow you down if you really having issues. And that will slow your engine down and help you to stop a little bit. It's not nice on the engine, but as long as you don't do it a lot, it should be fine, as long as you're not, like I said, stopping from a really high speed. But that way, that'll keep you from slamming on the brakes when you shouldn't be. Now, luckily, most cars now are ABS, so that does help you as well if you do hit the brakes. But the point is, you want to drive slow and you want to watch for that stuff. If it looks wet, it's ice. Let's put it that way. It's not a heavy deal for us here in, I'd say, 80% of Oklahoma. Only about 20% is gotten the heavy ice down south and southeast. So those are the areas that has the best likelihood of experiencing any power issues due to weather. The rest of it, though, has been right along the Red River, on the north side, on the south side of the river, all across North Texas, down to Dallas, all the way down I-35 to Waco, and Austin, and San Antonio, and then draw a line from that back to the west. And the other hard-hit area has been pretty much the central and southern parts of Arkansas, and that stretches up to Memphis and eastbound from there. So that was the hardest hit areas over this ice storm and this 3-day long period of winter weather from this one storm system and this one release of Arctic air that was advertised about 2 weeks ago. So you could see it coming if you were watching. It's not like it just showed up out of the blue. It was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Well, it was advertised. You just have to look for it. But anyway, so it's going to be getting out of here, and they're going to rebound a little bit. I didn't look a whole lot at the extended outlook, honestly, because my attention was too taken on the short-term forecast. So I will, after today, starting tomorrow, start to look ahead again to see if anything's coming our way, because the pattern's pretty active, and there is still more cold air up there that is still expected to come down. Long-term does expect more cold air intrusions for February into March, which has happened in the past recent few years. And when that does happen, the good news out of that, besides the fact that it stays colder longer, is that it delays our severe weather season. And when that does happen, it has a tendency to shorten it, so that instead of it starting like the middle of March for tornadoes, maybe we only start it now in the middle of April. And then you only can go to about the mid-June time. So instead of a 3-month window, maybe we have a 2-month window. So maybe that means less storms to deal with, therefore less headache in that department. So there's always good news, right? There's always a flip side to everything. There's a yin and a yang. So anyway, all right, let's see. I think that's everything I wanted to cover. I will look at a couple of your comments, and I'm going to check radar here again real quick for you guys, Oklahoma City. So there's the batch coming in here, the southwest. So it's coming up toward El Reno as we speak, hitting Binger, Caddo. So you're likely just seeing some glorified sprinkles on this first wave out here near Arapahoe. So there's a report here of some freezing rain that just came in at about 20 minutes ago. So it is hitting the ground in this area out here in western Oklahoma. So it will continue to work its way from the southwest to the northeast and get here in Oklahoma City proper here in probably within the next hour. So about 11 o'clock, it should be wet out there. And so if you're going to be traveling out at late tonight, I kind of focused in the morning hours, you guys getting up, but anybody that has to work tonight and get out there on the roads, you're going to have to deal with all this, so we'll be slippery. There is some signals down here. So there's type drizzle, so that's some freezing drizzle down there. And then Comanche down here in Stevens, Duncan, also some more freezing drizzle reports. So very light freezing rain, freezing drizzle with this batch that's coming out of Texas. And of course, there is still more to come in that area. Here's Dallas-Fort Worth sending a big chunk north and east from there with a new wave coming in on their southwest side. And there's more that keeps developing at that point. And like I said, the big picture shows there's a lot more down here in Texas. Look at all this, all the way down to the border. So all this has to keep coming northeast overnight, and it will continue to go into Oklahoma. So even though it took a while to get us saturated, from the dry air, it will eventually happen. When it does, it will accumulate. So just look for some icy, slippery conditions here in Oklahoma City, all along I-40, points to the south. Once you go too far north of 40, there's a lot more dry air still to have to overcome. Doesn't mean you won't get frozen precipitation. It just means as far as heavy accumulations are off the table for you, but enough to where you're probably still going to have to deal with some slippery roads overnight into tomorrow morning. So that's the latest with that. Okay, so I think I've covered it all. If you did want to ask me a question, I will go and look at the last few comments. So like you guys on YouTube and Facebook, if you did have a question for me, now's the time to shoot it my way. So I asked Robert's question already. This is business, you heard? I hear you, man. All right, let me go down here. Let's see. So Mustang, Shannon says, I'm already getting some sprinkles. Bridge is asking if we're live now. Oh, we've been live. Oh, I know why you're asking if I'm live, because there's no dogs to interrupt this. No, she said my internet's acting up. Hey, join the party, man. My internet's been acting up for freaking a week now. But I think they got it all figured out. So when he came by, the Cox cable guy came by to tell me how the line was in the neighborhood, he found some more noise coming from this lady's house, and she didn't want to let him in or let him look at it in the backyard. So he said, well, I'm going to come back tomorrow then. So there's still some noise, I guess, that might affect me. But other than that, I think they said they got it squared away. So that's good news. All right, so let me go over to Facebook here. And again, if you asked me questions earlier on, I wasn't able to see them because I'm looking at maps. But always thank you for the stars. So I may not get a chance to thank you every single time on Facebook whenever you do send them. But trust me, I do see them, and I do appreciate that. Lacey Bowling, you missed the whole thing. You got no excuse. Karen, is Edmond too far north? No, we will see some ice on the roads in Edmond. How is too much bread and milk? There's never too much bread and milk, Chris. Yeah, another crazy day at work tomorrow, at least in the morning. And then, as we said, if you want to kind of get away from the ice, just head out late morning. So 10 to 11 o'clock, about that window. If you want to play it safe, just wait till that time. If you see that temperature of 30, 32 degrees, maybe even 31, as long as there's no precipitation in your area, you should be good to go, because the sun will be helping out with the, it'll come through the clouds and all that kind of stuff, and it'll melt. Let's see. Yeah, the Blanchard area is getting stuff, Lacey, since you're so late. As a matter of fact, you're almost about to get some. It's not too far from you. Are the precip reports from MPing? Yes, they are, Brandon, and that is an awesome thing. If you guys haven't signed up for M, as in Mary, Ping, P-I-N-G, it means you can report your conditions to the National Weather Service. You all get to become weather watchers, and you can see how people like me use it real time. So if you get a Tempest weather station, you can see how I can use that real time to help me out as a forecaster. And the Weather Service can, and everybody can. And the same thing for the MPing reports. They help out as well. Coffee's late to the party. Are we getting stuff in Yukon tonight? Yes, you are. It's already about to move in for you as well. It's just to your west in El Reno. Let's see. You're welcome, Carol. I know. I'm glad to get this thing past me, too. I haven't gotten much rest. So most schools in the metro will decide in the morning, says Anthony. Yeah, that's usually the way it works. From my understanding, it's always like, think about 4 o'clock in the morning is usually about when they decide to start making those calls. Will Oklahoma City dry air keep us from getting anything? No, it kept us from getting anything up until now, but that's all coming to an end. Let's see. Yeah, you guys are always wondering about school closures. So yeah, I don't have any control over that. They don't call me. I don't have the phone banks to handle. Or the system to handle for all the superintendents to contact OLAT and go, hey, let everybody know we're not having school. But they do have a direct line, and they do have a system that the news stations all tap into, and they usually pass that on. And probably by now, unless your school's in the dark ages, everybody should be on some type of text messaging system, so alert system, to where you should get a text directly from your school system if they're going to cancel classes and then do remote learning or whatever. If they're not, there's no excuse for that. Everybody's got a text message system nowadays. It's not that expensive. So if that's a problem, go complain and find out why they don't have one. And then if they tell you they want some money, well, then better be prepared to give them some money. Victoria, thank you for the stars, by the way. So will Lawton get any more tonight, or is this almost past? No, you're going to get more tonight. Remember, anywhere south, sometimes I'm like, maybe I don't say this simple enough, but anywhere along I-40 and point south is going to get more ice overnight tonight. It's going to vary as to how much you get, but they all should be enough to cause slick and hazardous driving conditions. Let's put it this way. I would be surprised if you didn't. So look at it that way. And then as far as you live north of 40, which does include the metro, Edmond, yes, we're still going to get enough icing to cause slippery roadways. It's just there's going to be a quick gradient as far as amounts that trickle off the farther north you go from that I-40 corridor. Doesn't mean you're not going to get anything. You're going to get enough to cause traffic issues just as far as significant measurements go. It only takes a couple of hundredths of precipitation to cause accidents, right? So if we measure, say, 1/10 of an inch, that's some decent ice, and that would probably be more likely on the south side of Oklahoma City versus the north side, just as a ballpark figure. Let's see. Denise, safe to drive from Moore, northwest Oklahoma City at 9 a.m. 9 is going to be close. If you want to wait till like 10 or 11, I think yes. But 9, it might be pushing it. But definitely no earlier than that. Thank you, Eric. Thanks, Halia. Sprinkling and Blanchard. There you go. Didn't somebody ask me about Blanchard a minute ago? So I came through Dallas at 3:15 today from Houston. Ugh. 2 lanes wet, 1 lane ice covered, no problem driving. That's good. That is good. So that's what's part of the tricky part about winter weather events. Let's see the puppies. There was a wrestler on the WWE that would always say, "Let's see the puppies," and of course, it wasn't about puppies, but that's wrestling. I don't know. Jody would have to get them, and I don't think Jody's in a position. I guess I could get up and go get them. Come on, Aaron. Why are you gonna be lazy? Why are you making your wife do everything? All right, hold on. They'll be docile, so I could go get them. All right, let's just go see. Hold that thought. Okay. All right. This is Penelope. She's a new one, 6 months old. Of course, everybody knows Larry. He's a tank. He's put on a half a pound. Now, for his size, half a pound is a lot of weight because he's been eating her food, her puppy food. So he's chunked up a bit. So he looks more like a boxer than a teacup Yorkie. But he's sturdy. And then she is still made of silly putty. She's still the boss of him. He lets her do it. He's just a nice guy like that. When somebody comes to the door, he goes nuts. And then she doesn't really understand what's happening. But because he goes nuts, now she's going nuts. So she thinks she's doing something. So today, twice, these two caused quite a ruckus. Yeah. And I had to stop what I was doing because I couldn't even hear myself think. But so they're pretty handsy. Now they don't like to be close like this because you know how it is. But he wants his space. She just wants to go wherever he was and then moving, and then he's got to go find another place. She's rotten to the core. I say she takes after her mother, just to give Jody a hard time. And then she'll say, "Don't be a Penelope." So we say to each other, "Don't be a Penelope." Now, I know you're innocent. You just don't know any better. And why are you all squirmy all of a sudden? Oh, I know why. Because you're too big now. Why don't you go lose some weight, man? Quit eating the wrong food. So we're out of puppy food, so now he can't get her stash. So now they pretty much got to eat the same stuff here coming up. But anyway, so this is Larry and Penelope, our teacup Yorkies. All right, go on. Off they go. So they're a handful. They're cute, but same kind of hair in the morning, eh? All right, Lacey. Oh my goodness. So yeah, they're adorable. But we just picked up. They're both from Canada, so they're Canadian teacup Yorkies. And somebody already asked me, I want one. So we're actually going to breed them. So if you're interested in looking for a teacup Yorkie, they're pricey. I'm not gonna lie to you. Good grief. Because they're so hard to find. We had to go to Canada to find one, let's put it that way. But anyway, so that was them. But thanks for watching tonight. I think I've covered much everything there is to cover. Right now it looks like power outages for the most part haven't been that bad despite the amounts of precipitation in the form of freezing rain, which have been anywhere from 0.3 to 0.4, almost half an inch across a good chunk of central, northern, and western Texas. That's saying something. A lot of that can be from solar insulation that comes through the clouds. If temperatures in those harder hit areas still kind of hover between 30 and 32, there's a lot of weird things that go on. You still have, at the original part, you have some residual heat in all the elevated surfaces for at least a little while. But then, of course, that eventually runs out. I don't know. And then you can sometimes you just don't know. It's just weird. It's just very strange. But Anyway, that's the way it is. All right, well, that's it for me. Guys, be careful if you have to head out tonight and or in the morning. Watch the roadways very carefully. Take it slow if you have to go. Put plenty of distance between you and the other cars. Make sure you got some food and water in the car, a blanket, just in case something happens and you get in an accident and you got to wait for crews to get there to come get to you. Maybe a minute, and that way you can stay warm and stay hydrated. I guess that's about it. Okay, thanks for watching over these last several days. It's been a long run. I'm glad to see it come to an end. Hopefully I get a break before the next winter storm. All right, take care, everybody. Have a good night.